guys, it's Jessica here. Welcome back to Family Days. This is going to be another budgeting video. In this video, I'm going to talk about the zero-based budget. In the first part of the video, I'm going to talk about my experience with it. My husband and I sat down last night and did it. So I'm going to give you some helpful tips in how to create one and things to keep in mind when you're coming up with the numbers. And then in the second half of the video, I'm actually going to go through and do sort of a how-to with you. I created a mock budget, so I'll go through and show how to do the numbers, add them up, and how to actually create one. So we'll do that together at the end if you're interested in that, if you're sort of unfamiliar with it and would like to see the numbers actually written out and how it works. But let's get started with the first part of this video. My husband and I finally sat down and wrote out our budget, the budget that we were going to follow and stick to. And it was so exciting and also terrifying at the same time. It's so nice to just, it's all there on paper. This is what we're going to do now. This is where the money is going. This is how we're going to pay off our debt. And we're going to do it and we're going to stick to it. And I feel really good about it this time. I've done budgets in the past. I've never done a zero-based budget per se. I've done just several others, just write it down and come up with numbers. I wasn't looking to get a zero at the end of the month, but they were never realistic. I would just never, in my mind, I wanted the grocery bill to be less than it really is, so I would always make that number too low and sort of unattainable, along with like other categories like gas and stuff as well. And so at the end of the month, I never was able to stick to the goals that I wanted, and it was just so defeating, and that's why I always just gave up pretty much after the first month. So this month, when we sat down, we were realistic, and that is my number one tip to you when creating a budget. Be realistic. When you put a number next to those categories, make sure it's a number that you can stick to. If you know you spend $600 on groceries every month, don't allot yourself $400 because that's what you wish you could spend. You need to be realistic, because if you're not realistic, you're going to get frustrated and you're going to give up. So be realistic is my number one goal, or my number one tip. So we were realistic. The budget is, like I said, I'm excited and terrified at the same time. I think Anna from Live Like No One Else described it as, I forget the exact term she used, but in one of her videos she called it like a happy prison or something. I mean, you're bound to this budget and it's kind of terrifying and scary, but at the same time it's exhilarating because if you stick to this, you're going to dig yourself out of this hole that you're in and you're going to get out of debt. So I'm excited. So we figured out the numbers, and in my last video I think I said I wanted to be out of debt in 2 years. Well, that's not going to happen. According to our budget, we are going to have an allotted $700 a month that we are always going to be throwing towards our debt. So that means it's going to take us 5.5 years to get out of debt. But, we are going to be selling some things. My husband does side work. We get tax returns. So I don't think it's going to take us quite the 5.5 years, but I don't think it's going to be the 2 years either. So that's exciting. So I'm really excited about that. There's a definitive timeline. We will definitely be out of debt before the 5.5 years is up. Hopefully sooner. 3 or 4 years would be awesome. So, but regardless, we've got our game plan. So yes, that number one tip is to be realistic. Another tip that I found to be helpful when we sat down to do our budget is evaluating your needs versus your wants. Do you need cable? No, we don't have cable. We have Netflix. Do you need unlimited data on your cell phone? No. Do you need that camping trailer? Do you need 2 cars? Whatever it may be for you, you need to sit down and evaluate your needs versus your wants. And your biggest need and your biggest want should be financial peace, financial freedom. So when you sit down and you look at these things in your life and try to evaluate whether you need them versus want them, does it outweigh your need for financial freedom? Because in most cases, the financial freedom is going to outweigh that. So definitely go through the things in your life and evaluate whether it's a need versus a want. And I guess the last thing would be adjusting your budget. Don't feel like if you write out your budget, this is the definitive thing and it's always going to be this. I'm going to be reevaluating our budget on a month-to-month basis. And this is sort of just going to help make sure we're on track, make sure that the numbers that are allotted for each category are still being realistic. Hey, I'm hoping that I can cut our grocery budget down and have an extra $100 to throw towards debt or towards a sinking fund or whatever it may be. But don't feel like this is it. Definitely make sure you readjust your budget on a month-to-month basis. So I think that's about it. Oh, the other one was make sure you cut yourself some slack. When you're doing out the numbers, last night when we were doing the budget, I allotted $25 to both my husband and I as sort of like a, here's your $25 to spend for the month on whatever it may be, shoes, clothes, something at the convenience store. And my husband said to me, to me that feels a little dry, a little stingent. Like, we want to set up this budget so that obviously we're, pulling in the reins and making sure that our spending isn't out of control anymore, but we also don't want to feel too deprived that we are going to turn our back on the budget because we don't feel like we have any money to spend on like entertainment. So what we did was we upped that number to 50, and that would be my tip is just to make sure that you have some fun money, because if you take all the fun out of life and just focus on the debt, I just feel like you are gonna burn yourself out. So make sure that you allot some money for yourself each month, whatever number works with your budget, but make sure that you are able to treat yourself so that you don't get burnt out by being on a budget. It's all about balance, so we need to make sure that we find the balance. So now I'm going to go to the second part of the video, which is the how-to of how to do the zero-based budget. Before I get to that, I just wanted to say real quick that in the next coming days, I'm going to be showing you our envelopes, what our sinking funds are, what envelopes we have, where we keep our envelopes, because a lot of people are very weary about keeping cash around their house. So I'll show you where we keep ours, how we keep it safe, and yes, what envelopes we have, our sinking funds, and I will do a whole separate video on that. So look forward to that coming up in the next few days. But now I am going to show you how to do a zero-based budget. Ready, set. Okay, so now that I've talked about the zero-based budget and how my husband and I are going to be utilizing that to help us get out of debt, and what a wonderful program I really think that it is, I thought I would just walk through and just show you how to actually make one for yourself, in case you are unfamiliar with the zero-based budgeting system and you're curious how you would actually make one. I thought I would just sort of do a mock one so that you could see how it all works. So I chose $3,000 as a monthly income. I thought that was a fairly average income for Americans, so I thought you would be able to relate to that and see how this all works. So let's get started. First, you're going to list your fixed expenses. These are things that do not change month to month. They are exactly the same. You can count on what the bill is going to be, and there's really no guessing at it. Down here, electric and heating, that does vary from month to month, so you can't really count on that being fixed. And then you have your sinking funds down at the bottom. And those are going to be different for everybody, so I just chose a couple ones just to give you an example. All right, so let's get started with our fixed expenses. All right, so let's say your mortgage is going to be, or rent is going to be $1,200 a month. That is the same from month to month. Just be careful, because if your property taxes are rolled into your mortgage, sometimes those do go up. So you do need to be prepared for an increase in that as well. So cell phone, let's say your cell phone bill is $50 a month. We'll say the internet is $50 a month as well. We'll say car insurance, we'll say that's $60. We'll say you have a $150 car payment. We'll say you're going to allot yourself $500 for groceries. And we'll say gas is going to be $200 as well. Okay, so next you are going to move on to your variable expenses and your sinking funds. So electric and heat, obviously in the summer months, goes down. So I would shoot to aim high on this category. Look at your past bills, try to get an average of what you spend over the course of the year. Try to make this as accurate as possible so it doesn't throw off your budget. So I am going to say, we'll say $75 as an average for each of those. Now in the summer months, if your heating bill is not, nothing, $25, $50, you want to take that extra money, put it in a sinking fund, put it in an envelope, so when winter rolls around, you have the extra money when the price goes up in the winter. So if in the winter it's $100 a month, you have that money in an envelope to cover the difference. So you want to make sure that this does not throw off your budget. So like I said, take a look at your past utility expenses and make sure that this is as accurate a number as you can get it. So next you're going to move down to your sinking funds. Now at this point I would suggest adding up your budget. So up here at the top, if you go down and you add up all these numbers, you get $22.10. So that is the cost for everything up there. So when you add that 22, so what you want to do is you want to take $3,000 and you're going to minus the $22.10, and that leaves you with $790. And then we have $150 worth of expenses there. So we're going to do $790 minus $150, and that leaves us with $640 for our sinking funds. Now for the sinking funds, I chose debt, Christmas, car maintenance, a miscellaneous fund, and personal. So we're in a debt-free journey together, so obviously we want to be throwing as much money as we can towards this debt. So let's just say we are definitely going to allot $200. Obviously, if we only spend $400 on groceries for that month, we want to take that extra $100, throw it into the sinking fund, throw it into our debt fund, and up our snowball on that. So we would be throwing $300 towards the month. But we'll just say we're consistently going to throw $200 towards our debt each month. Now for Christmas, say you want to do $100 a month, so when that rolls around, you have $1,200 for Christmas. These are I'm just doing average numbers. You can certainly do, your own sinking funds and, choose your own prices. This is sort of just a guideline to just help you understand how this budget works. So as you go along and you add these numbers next to your sinking fund categories, you're going to be minusing them from this $640. So let's say car maintenance, we're going to throw $25 into our sinking fund each month so that if something comes up, we're prepared for it. Tires, something goes wrong, we have the cash in hand to pay for it. And next, let's say for miscellaneous, we are going to do $65. And then when you do the math out, that leaves you with $100 for personal. And make sure that you give yourself, I'll talk about that in a minute, money for your personal spending each month. It's really important. So here are the numbers. And when you go through and you add it all up, it all adds up to your monthly income. So that is how you do the zero-based budget. I hope this was helpful. Like I said, these sinking fund categories can change. These numbers can be totally different for you, but you want to make sure that every single dollar is accounted for. Don't let a single dollar get away. We are telling our money where to go now, and this is how we're going to do it.